So in today's War Thunder video, we're going to be going over the mechanic of overpressure. Generally, what overpressure tries to represent with a War Thunder, that explosions are very scary. Think about nuclear weapons for a second here. Think about the test footage that you have seen of where nuclear weapons basically destroy a house and it completely rips it from its foundation. Now, that's basically what overpressure is. It's using the positive pressure from that explosion to actually deal damage to stuff around it. The thing about overpressure within game and within real life is that it's on a very much smaller scale than it is whenever it comes to nuclear explosions, but it is the best way to visualize it a little bit better. In this video, we'll be covering how HE overpressures open top vehicles. We're also going to be talking about how it just overpressures general vehicles, APHE overpressure as well, and then we'll also finally go off some of my favorite weak spots whenever it comes to overpressure mechanic and how you can abuse it within your games. So make sure to like and sub to the channel. It is always very much appreciated. Then also at the exact same time, if you have more questions about this feature or you just have a general incline to ask just questions about the game, make sure to join the Discord. There's a lot of people that are knowledgeable about the game, and even I can come in and answer questions that people don't really know much about. So yeah, let's get on to the video. Alright, so now we're on to the testing portion of this video, and I think it's way easier to understand if you have some real world examples, and also you can actually see it actually done within the game. So that's why we're actually in here. We're my little testing hangar that I like to use whenever it comes to showing off different mechanics within the game. And well, now we're just going to be looking at the Nashorn here. So right now we have an AP loaded, and the thing I want to get over this first is you may hear some misconceptions of like an APFSDS could overpressure or an APDS could overpressure any round within the game. So I'll go ahead and show you right now exactly what I'm talking about. If you go to a round and it does not say towards the middle, like we'll go over to the HE, if it does not say armor penetration 10.2mm high explosive fragmentation, that round cannot overpressure. So APCR cannot overpressure, an AP round can't overpressure. It gets very, very convoluted. Like if you're shooting like a 120mm cannon from like the Surbase or something like that, or Sublinde, some people think that because of how big that round is, it overpressures. It's not technically true. So it only happens to chemical munitions like an HE. It also can happen to stuff like an APHE if your filler is big enough, SAP, ATGMs, rockets, anything that has any sort of chemical component to it technically can overpressure within the game. But that's one thing to note. Any sort of round like this, no, it will not overpressure. It will not do a ton of damage. I mean, like right there, if we shoot there, it's not going to do nothing with that AP round. But if we switch over to an HE right now and we shoot this Nashorn, and this is why I'd always recommend bringing like 1 or 2 HEs in your tank, because any open top tank like this, which has no armor, can be one-shotted by just having an HE round. So even the most bad shot ever, like if you hit right here, it is going to still overpressure every single guy within that tank. So that's why HE is so good to bring, because of this sort of thing. But now let's talk about overpressure in general. So overpressure for open top tanks is a little bit easier to do because they're open top. The crew isn't protected by any sort of armor, so it's way easier to actually see what this does. So basically any HE shell that you have that's shooting at a Nashorn, shooting at like an M10, if you hit towards the turret, shooting at an M56 Scorpion will overpressure the crew. That's mainly your main thing that you try to do with an HE shell. Like, really don't matter where you hit this thing. Like, you can even hit down here, the really bad shot, which is into the track. I mean, the track ate most of the HE effect, but it still killed the driver, and it also still killed the MG gunner, which would be on this left side right here. So the thing about this is it gets a little bit complicated once you actually get into tanks which can technically take a little bit more of a hit. So just think about it in this way. As long as you hit towards the area of an open top tank that is actually going to be exposed, like the crew up in here, you should be able to get a one shot every single time. But like right in here is a very unreliable area. But unless you have like a 152 or something, it also matters on the size of your caliber of your cannon, the HE filler, and all that sort of stuff. But generally, just think about it in this way. The closer you get to the crew, or closer that you get to the component of where you should have to shoot at to overpressure a vehicle, is where you should be shooting for most of your tanks. Now, whenever it comes to vehicles like the Jagdpanzer over here, we actually have a weak spot on it that can actually get exploited by just a 75mm HE. I've actually seen it actually be abused by the 57s as well, but we're just going to be using the Sherman, and we'll switch over to another vehicle in a second to show off a little bit more of this. So the heads are overall, I mean, the lower plate you can technically pin somewhat with like an APCR round if you have a higher pinning cannon. This plate right in here though is basically immune to pretty much all of the like battle ratings around you type vehicles. So if you shoot here with an AP round, it's not going to do anything. You shoot that little MG. But watch once we actually introduce a HE round. This HE round will nuke the Hetzer, because the top of an Hetzer, and we'll put it up on the screen now, is only about 8mm thick. Now, if we go to the HE round that we have here, as you can see from armor penetration, high explosive fragmentation, we have a penetration of 10.2. So anything above 8 millimeters of penetration from its HE effect will be able to overpressure the Hetzer, and it's a very reliable spot to go for because these things are very, very potent, especially if you get like a down tier or something. But as soon as you have one HE round and you hit that gun mentally for the MG, it is basically pretty much done. So now I'll switch over to a vehicle like the M109, and I'll show you a little bit more whenever it comes to its HE effect. Alright, so now we're in the M109, and the thing that I want to point out first is that I can't go over every single HE shell within the game, so you're going to have to take some inferences and actually learn about some of the vehicles by yourself. But realize this, the TNT equivalent is something else that you need to look out for. So this one actually has a 9.14 kg. If you have higher than that, you can take more riskier shots. But the thing about this is that you want to actually get as close as you can to the area of where you're trying to actually pin. So for example, here we have the Tiger H1. This is a vehicle that you'll see a lot with an M109, and it's a vehicle that is going to be very prolific, but very, very easy to take out if you know where to shoot at. So with a Tiger, because you only have technically with your HE pin right here, you only have 61.1 millimeters of pin, you do not want to shoot for this because it will not pin. So your upper frontal plate of a Tiger is like not where you shoot with this sort of weapon because the plates around it, so this upper plate where we hit at is like I think 100 millimeters thick. If we go down to right here, this one also isn't 61 millimeters, and it doesn't have enough HE like effect to actually go towards the bottom of the tank. Now, even though the turret itself technically is actually bigger and also probably a little bit more armored because of the like just random volumetrics of this turret, it's actually the better place to shoot for because the actual plate underneath the turret right here is very, very, very thin. Now I have to look at it again because I don't exactly remember what this like measurement is, but if we actually shoot here, as you can see, it overpressures it. It does not pin. It actually goes through the plate that's below the turret. So that's the best way to put that overpressure is doing. So hang on, we'll actually get up next to the tank so you can actually see what I'm talking about here, especially if you don't know what I'm talking about. So as you can see where this driver's hatch is and where this other like MG hatch is, this plate right here is not that heavily armored because, well, it doesn't really need to be because it shouldn't ever get hit by a actual round. But if we back up for a second here and we actually shoot this tank right here, once again, it will be able to overpressure it because it goes through the area right here of where there's just like no armor at all. The same thing goes for like the roofs of tanks. For example, this Tiger, let's just say that you see it cresting across the hill. Because the roof armor is actually a lot like shorter and also like less thick, you're actually just going to be able to go through it as well. So that's the way that overpressure kind of works whenever it comes to these sort of tanks. You do definitely need the penetration to be able to go through that sort of thing. So 61.1 millimeters is good enough for even stuff like the Tiger 2. And it's one of those things about like this HE like overpressuring a little bit overpowered because you can take some of the heavily armored tanks within the game and basically just nuked them because it's going through some of the weakest parts of the armor that in real life they really didn't expect that they would have to actually do anything with. I mean, as you see, the roof armor right there goes directly through it, which is kind of a bit crazy. The same thing happens to the mouse. I mean, like for example, if you see a mouse, the thing that you never want to shoot for on the mouse is technically the two little cheeks right there. You want to shoot actually kind of below the gun. So we don't have to like actually like hit this thing and this guy's actually like maneuvering. We'll get a little bit closer so we're not having to do that. So if you see a mouse in your game and you're needing to exterminate it, all you have to do is don't shoot for the turret cheeks where you normally shoot with a regular round. You actually want to shoot right here below the mantlet and try to not hit this area right in here because if you hit this, it would just completely not do anything to your shell. But as long as you can hit right there, it nukes the mouse basically exactly every single time. So that's why overpressure is a little bit insane because you can take some of the heavily armored tanks within the game, even stuff like these MBTs over here, man. You can take the MBTs and just nuke them because of your shell. Like this T80 right here, if we shoot for its turret ring area, it'll just be able to get nuked. So that's basically why overpressure is very, very potent within the game, and it's very overpowered in some sort of instances. So next, we're actually going to talk about HE filler because this one's a little bit interesting to talk about. So whenever it comes to HE filler for most of your HE rounds, anything over 40 millimeter basically should be able to HE affect a lot of vehicles. So as you can see right here on this T44 right now, we have 741 grams of filler. That is plenty enough. It goes over the threshold, which I think is around 170 grams. That's at least from my experience of where I've been able to see that overpressuring effect works. Now, because you also have explosive filler within APHE shells, this also kind of happens at the exact same time. So As you see right here with this, the BR-265K round, we have 77 grams of TNT filler. Now, this is not enough to overpressure tanks within the inside, so you'll only be able to get damage done through your explosion and then also at the exact same time the shrapnel. Now, if we go down to this one, it's 164, and while yes, it is very, very, very close to the 170 threshold, I do believe that is in the game, it still is a little bit iffy. Sometimes it will maybe overpressure and sometimes it won't. But a vehicle that will always overpressure, no matter what you want to do about, is we're going to look at some of them here. So the flak bus right here, that's got a bunch of bushes that I left on it for a very long time. This one has 215 grams. So as long as you pin the tank, it will be able to nuke them. Same thing goes with all of these Tigers. This is why no one runs the 39. They always run this round right here because this one only has 108 and this one has 215. So even though you do lose a little bit of pen, basically, if you're able to pin with this round, you're going to nuke the enemy. And if you want to see an example of this, we can actually show it off real quick in the test drive. As you can see, there's a T-34 down there. All we have to do is connect with it. We don't even have to actually aim it in the exact same spot. But as you've seen, before the shell itself actually exploded, the crew in the tank was already dead from the overpressure effect. So if they're already blackened before the explosion goes off, that was them dying from overpressure. So that's basically what happens with this sort of round. Because it has so much HE filler in it, you're actually able to overpressure with this type of round. Another one which is very prolific and that is actually known a lot about is the 90 mil, like the Beretta, the 501, and then also you have it on this guy right here, the 371. This one actually has enough, see 347. You also have 347 on that one. So you do have plenty enough to actually overpressure pretty much any tank that you pen. All right, so now we're back in the MTCA, and I want to go over a round which is called HEATFS and also HEATFS because these two rounds act a little bit different whenever it comes to their overpressuring effect. Now, this HEATFS round right now, it has over 38 millimeters of pen, but it only has 4.31 kgs of filler, which is way smaller than the M109. So just from seeing that the HE filler, if we shoot right in here where we shot about where the M109, it won't do anything to the Tiger because, well, it's not close enough to anywhere that you can actually overpressure. So if you actually want to overpressure a Tiger with a HEATFS shell, you actually got to get a little bit closer to the bottom, closer to the plate. So I think this is a really good example of just kind of showing off how the HE filler gives you a little bit more leniency whenever it comes to shooting for different spots because, well, for one, it's way easier to hit if you can shoot all the way up here and you still get an overpressuring effect. Now for HEATFS, it's a little bit interesting because HEATFS actually is a penetrating round, unlike regular HE. So this is going to still pen, but since it doesn't have a like cone of like actual like HE effect, like it's not expanding like a regular HE round is, it's mainly like a pin. It's like a pin going straight into the tank. The HE effect of this is a little bit harder to actually do anything about. As you can see right there, even though this HEATFS has 1.271 and it says it can pin 16.9, we still don't have an HE effect because, as you can see, it will not go through. So that's a little bit easier way to see it, seeing the differences between your fillers and then also the round itself. I mean, as you see, 4.1, we're still able to overpressure with 38, but then we go down here to 16.9. It's a little bit too small to overpressure that, but at the exact same time, once we pin the tank itself, because we're not pinning with an HE round, which like expands, it's more like it's like a jet of metal going through the actual tank. It's not going to be able to overpressure. But if we take this exact same round and we shoot this Nashorn, which is open top, as you can see, it overpressures because the actual explosion of the round itself can actually do something. Same thing with the hash right here. I mean, we'll do it with the hash too. As you see, open top, worst angle ever, and you're still able to just overpressure all of the tank. All right, so to end off this video, once again, let's just show you guys that like this is straight up AP round. It's kinetic. It's not going to be able to overpressure the vehicle. It's just a 120mm cannon, but at the exact same time, as you can see right there, we shot it. It is not going to overpressure. Same with Sherman. I mean, look at that. You still go through it. It kills a lot of crew, but it's not overpressure. So hopefully we don't get that anymore because that is quite annoying. Like whenever people talk about overpressure, for some reason, big cannons for some people just equal overpressure, but it's not really true. The last weak spot that I really want to show you is if you have the 102mm cannon, or you have like a 128mm cannon from like the Jagdtiger, or you're using like an M103 and you see an M60 going about, because look at here, it's a Magach 6. You can see these for America. This cupola up here can be overpressured with an HE shell. Just saying it. It's kind of a little bit of a funny one because, well, with a 120mm cannon, It's a little bit iffy sometimes, I do have to say, with this regular AP round. But yeah, overall overpressure is kind of easy to understand once you kind of get your head wrapped around it. You basically just want to remember that the more filler you have, the more leniency that you'll have whenever it comes to actually destroying different tanks. And then also at the exact same time, the best place to aim for most tanks is shooting towards the actual turret ring itself, so you're going through the weakest amount of armor. Like this, like T-72 right here. I'm not really sure if this can actually pin it. I mean, where are we at right now? 39? It might actually can pin this. Now let's try it. Now it's not going to be able to. Or no, we're on AP, aren't we? Hang on, we got to switch back over to HE. But yeah, just remember that. It's like the closer you can get, the better you can get to it, the more it's going to be able to pun whenever it comes to that. But yeah, HE is very, very busted mechanic. It is something that makes no sense to a lot of people, and hopefully this video helped out a little bit whenever it comes to understanding it. So hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys in the next War Thunder video.